In the year 2347, humanity had finally earned a seat at the Galactic Council, an alliance of advanced civilizations spread across the stars. For decades, Earth had struggled to prove itself worthy among species far older and more technologically superior. The Council tolerated humanity's presence, but often treated them as little more than children, naive, weak, and insignificant. Captain Alex Carter, a decorated officer in the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF, was one of the few humans trusted to represent Earth in diplomatic missions. On this particular day, Alex stood aboard the Council's Grand Orbital Station, a shimmering structure that floated in the void of space. The station was a marvel of alien engineering, with towering spires made of materials no human scientist could replicate. Alex adjusted the collar of his uniform, feeling out of place among the sleek, otherworldly designs worn by the Council members. At his side was Max, a loyal service dog trained to assist in high-stress environments. Max wasn't just a working animal. He was a symbol of humanity's bond with nature, something many aliens found curious or amusing. The meeting had started peacefully enough. Representatives from various species discussed trade agreements, border disputes, and resource allocations. Then Zixer, a reptilian counselor with scales that shimmered like liquid metal, raised a question about Earth's recent expansion into unclaimed territories. His tone was sharp, almost accusatory. Alex listened carefully, keeping his expression neutral. He knew better than to let emotion show during these discussions. As the debate grew heated, Max began to grow restless. The dog sensed tension in the room, his ears twitching and his tail stiffening. Alex placed a reassuring hand on Max's back, silently urging him to stay calm. But then, without warning, Zixer pointed a clawed finger at Max and declared, "This creature is a distraction. Remove it immediately." Alex frowned. "Max is part of my team," he replied firmly. "He's trained to remain quiet and focused. There's no need for concern." Zixer sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your attachment to primitive beasts is laughable. They have no place here." Before anyone could react, Zixer pulled a small device from his belt, a weapon disguised as a tool, and fired a single bolt of energy at Max. The shot struck the dog squarely in the chest, sending him crumpling to the floor. For a moment, the room fell silent. Alex froze, staring in disbelief at Max's lifeless body. Rage surged through him, but years of discipline kept him from lashing out. Instead, he knelt beside Max, his hands trembling as he checked for any sign of life. There was none. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he blinked them away, refusing to show weakness in front of the Council. "What have you done?" Alex demanded, his voice low but filled with fury. Zixer shrugged, completely unfazed. "It was necessary. The Council cannot function with distractions." Other Council members murmured among themselves, some nodding in agreement, while others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. When Alex returned to Earth, he carried Max's body with him. News of the incident spread quickly, igniting outrage across the planet. Protests erupted in major cities, with people holding signs that read, "Justice for Max, and Earth won't be pushed around." Videos of the shooting went viral, showing Zixer's casual cruelty and the Council's indifference. For many, Max wasn't just a dog. He represented everything humanity cherished: loyalty, companionship, and resilience. General Harper, the head of the UEDF, called an emergency meeting upon Alex's arrival. As Alex recounted what happened, his voice cracked with emotion. "They think we're weak," he said bitterly. "They think they can do whatever they want because we won't fight back." Harper leaned forward, his expression grim. "Maybe it's time we showed them they're wrong." Little did the Council know, this seemingly minor act of cruelty would set off a chain reaction, one that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The emergency meeting took place in a secure underground bunker beneath the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. General Harper sat at the head of the table, his face lined with worry, but his eyes sharp and focused. Around him were some of Earth's brightest minds and most capable leaders, including Captain Alex Carter, who still wore the weight of grief like a heavy cloak. Also present was Dr. Laura Bennett, a soft-spoken astrophysicist whose intelligence often went unnoticed because of her quiet demeanor. Lieutenant Ryan Scott, a fiery pilot known for his quick temper and fierce loyalty, paced back and forth near the wall, clenching and unclenching his fists. "This isn't just about Max," Harper began, his voice steady but firm. "It's about how they see us. They think we're weak, that we'll roll over every time they push us around. If we don't respond, this will keep happening." Alex leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "They killed Max in cold blood, right in front of me. And then they acted like it didn't matter, like he was nothing more than a bug to be squashed. We can't let them get away with that." Scott stopped pacing and turned to face the group. "So what are we waiting for? Let's hit them where it hurts. Show them we're not afraid to fight back." Harper held up a hand, silencing Scott before he could say more. "It's not that simple. If we retaliate without thinking, we risk starting a war we might not win. The Council has technology far beyond ours, or at least what they believe is beyond ours." At this, Dr. Laura Bennett spoke up. She pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and looked around the room. "Actually, sir, we may have something they don't know about." Her words drew everyone's attention. "For years, we've been working on Project Aegis, a secret fleet hidden beneath the Arctic ice. These ships are equipped with advanced weapon systems, including a new energy weapon I've been developing. It's designed to disable enemy shields, something the Council hasn't seen before." A murmur rippled through the room. Even Alex seemed surprised. "Why wasn't I told about this?" he asked, his tone tinged with frustration. "Because until now, it wasn't needed," Harper replied. "We built it as a last resort, in case the Council ever turned on us. Well, that day has come." Scott grinned, clearly excited by the prospect of using these secret weapons. "Finally, something they won't see coming. When do we start?" Before Harper could answer, a technician entered the room carrying a tablet. He handed it to Harper, who scanned the screen quickly. His expression darkened. "Protests have broken out all over the world," he said. "People are demanding justice for Max. Some cities are even calling for outright rebellion against the Council. We don't have much time to decide what to do." Laura hesitated, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "If we use Aegis, it changes everything. Once we show our hand, there's no going back. The Council will see us as a threat, and they'll stop at nothing to crush us." "But if we don't act," Alex countered, "they'll keep treating us like dirt. They'll think we're too scared to stand up for ourselves." Harper nodded slowly. "She's right, Alex. This decision will define us, for better or worse. But one thing is clear: humanity can't stay silent anymore." After a long pause, Harper stood up, signaling the end of the discussion. "Prepare the fleet, activate Project Aegis, and make sure everyone involved knows what's at stake. If we fail, it's not just Earth we lose, it's our future among the stars." As the meeting broke up, Alex lingered behind, staring at a photo of Max displayed on the conference room wall. His jaw tightened with determination. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: humanity would no longer bow to anyone, not even the mighty Galactic Council. Deep beneath the frozen expanse of the Arctic, hidden from prying eyes and advanced alien sensors, lay Earth's best-kept secret. The entrance to the facility was disguised as a research outpost, but below ground, it housed something extraordinary. Project Aegis, a fleet of warships built in complete secrecy over decades. Engineers and technicians moved quickly through the massive underground complex, their breath visible in the cold air as they prepared for what might be humanity's greatest gamble. Dr. Laura Bennett stood on an observation platform overlooking the main hangar bay. Below her, rows of sleek ships rested in cradles carved into the ice. Each vessel gleamed under harsh artificial lights, its surface painted with designs inspired by Earth's mythology. There was the Odyssey, named after humanity's eternal quest for knowledge, the Titan, symbolizing strength and resilience, and the Phoenix, representing rebirth and renewal. These ships were unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen, equipped with cutting-edge technology developed in secret labs across the globe. Laura's gaze lingered on the Phoenix. She felt a mix of pride and unease as she watched engineers run final diagnostics on its systems. Her mind raced with thoughts about the weapon she had spent years perfecting, a device capable of disabling enemy shields. It worked by emitting a pulse of concentrated energy that disrupted the molecular structure of protective barriers. If successful, it could level the playing field against the Council's superior firepower. But if it failed, she didn't want to think about that. Nearby, Lieutenant Ryan Scott barked orders to a group of pilots gathered around a holographic map of the solar system. Most of them were young, barely out of training, but their determination shone brightly in their eyes. Scott pointed to various locations on the map, explaining potential battle scenarios and strategies. "We'll need precision and speed," he said, his voice firm. "These aliens won't expect us to hit back this hard, but we can't afford any mistakes." As Scott drilled the pilots, Captain Alex Carter arrived at the facility. He stepped off the elevator onto the observation deck, where Laura greeted him with a nod. "Welcome to Aegis," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you'd approve of all this." Alex crossed his arms, surveying the scene below. "To be honest, I didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified," he admitted. "But after what happened to Max, I don't see another way forward." Laura sighed, her expression troubled. "Using Aegis means crossing a line we can't uncross. Once we reveal ourselves, the Council will see us as a threat. They won't stop until they've neutralized us, or worse." "I know," Alex replied. "But staying quiet isn't an option anymore. Humanity has been treated like garbage long enough. If we want respect, we have to take it." Down in the hangar, Scott approached Alex and Laura, his face flushed with excitement. "The crews are ready, sir. We just need your word to launch." Alex nodded slowly. "Good work, Lieutenant. But remember, this isn't just about revenge for Max. This is about showing the galaxy that Earth isn't afraid to stand up for itself." Later that evening, as preparations continued, Laura found herself alone in the lab, double-checking calculations for the energy weapon. She couldn't shake the feeling that unleashing such power might come at a cost far greater than anyone realized. Still, she reminded herself why they were doing this, not just for Max, but for every human who had ever been looked down upon by the Council. By morning, the first ships of the Aegis fleet began moving toward the surface, breaking through layers of ice as they ascended into the sky. For the first time in history, humanity was taking its destiny into its own hands. Whether it led to victory or ruin remained to be seen, but one thing was certain. The days of bowing to the Council were over. Captain Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the UEDF cruiser Eclipse, staring out at the vast expanse of space. The ship hummed softly around him, its systems running smoothly as it made its way back to the Galactic Council headquarters. Beside him, Lieutenant Ryan Scott leaned against the railing, his arms crossed and his expression tense. Neither of them had spoken much since leaving Earth, both lost in their own thoughts. The mission ahead was clear, one last attempt at diplomacy before unleashing the full might of Project Aegis. General Harper had insisted on this final effort, hoping to avoid outright war if possible. But Alex wasn't optimistic. After what Sixer had done to Max, and the Council's refusal to acknowledge it as anything more than a minor incident, he doubted they would listen now. When the Eclipse docked at the Council station, Alex and Scott were escorted to the main chamber. The room was filled with Council members from various species, each seated on floating platforms that hovered above the floor. Their expressions ranged from indifference to open hostility as Alex stepped forward, Max's memory weighing heavily on his mind. Zixar was there, of course, his metallic scales glinting under the artificial light. He sneered when he saw Alex approach. "Back so soon, human," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Did you come to beg for forgiveness?" Alex forced himself to remain calm, though every muscle in his body tensed at the alien's words. "I'm here to demand justice," he replied evenly. "What you did to Max wasn't just an attack on me. It was an insult to all of humanity." A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Some council members exchanged glances, while others looked bored. One of them, a tall insectoid creature with multiple eyes, spoke up. "Your attachment to animals is peculiar," it said, its voice clicking and buzzing. "Surely you understand why such distractions cannot be tolerated." "It wasn't a distraction," Alex shot back, his voice rising slightly. "Max was part of my team, a living being who deserved respect. You killed him without cause, and you didn't even apologize. That's not how civilized beings act." Zixar laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the chamber. "Civilized? Humans are barely more than children playing at being adults. Your reliance on beasts proves it." Scott clenched his fists but said nothing, knowing any outburst would only make things worse. Alex took a deep breath, trying to keep his composure. "If you won't take responsibility for your actions, then there's nothing left to discuss." With that, he turned and walked out of the chamber, Scott close behind him. They didn't speak until they were back aboard the Eclipse. Once inside, Scott slammed his fist against the wall in frustration. "They're never going to listen, sir. They think we're weak, and nothing we say will change their minds." Alex nodded grimly. "I know, but we had to try. Now it's time to show them what happens when they push us too far." As the Eclipse prepared to leave the station, Alex received an encrypted message from General Harper. It contained simple orders. Activate Operation Reckoning. The time for diplomacy was over. Back in the Arctic, the Aegis fleet was already mobilizing. Ships emerged from their icy hiding places, breaking through the surface one by one. Pilots strapped into cockpits, engines roared to life, and weapons systems powered up. Dr. Laura Bennett monitored the energy weapon from her station, ensuring it was ready for deployment. Everyone knew what was at stake. If they failed, humanity's future among the stars would be destroyed. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Alex gave the order to launch. The fleet moved as one, heading toward the heart of the Council's territory. For the first time, humanity was taking the fight directly to its oppressors. As the ships entered hyperspace, Alex allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. This wasn't just about avenging Max anymore. It was about proving that Earth wouldn't back down, no matter the odds. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Humanity wasn't afraid to fight for its place among the stars, and it never would be again. The Arctic base buzzed with activity as the Aegis fleet prepared for its first mission. Engineers scurried between ships, making final adjustments to engines and weapon systems. Pilots ran through pre-flight checks, their faces pale but determined. In the command center, Dr. Laura Bennett sat at her station, surrounded by monitors displaying streams of data. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she calibrated the energy weapon one last time. It had to work perfectly. There was no room for error. Captain Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, the flagship of the fleet. He watched as the massive ship rose slowly from its icy cradle, breaking free of the frozen surface that had hidden it for so long. The sight filled him with a mix of pride and dread. This was humanity's moment to prove itself, but it could also be its downfall if things went wrong. Lieutenant Ryan Scott entered the bridge, his flight suits zipped up tightly. "All squadrons are ready, sir," he reported. "Everyone's in position." Alex nodded. "Good. Once we're out there, remember, precision is key. We can't afford to waste resources or make mistakes." Scott hesitated, then asked, "Do you think they'll see us coming?" Alex shook his head. "Not at first. Our cloaking technology should keep us hidden until we're close enough to strike. But once we engage, All hell will break loose. Back in the command center, Laura stared at the monitor showing the energy weapons status. Everything seemed to be functioning correctly, but doubt gnawed at her. She had spent years developing this technology, yet she couldn't shake the fear that something might go wrong. What if the weapon failed? What if it wasn't enough to disable the Council's shields? Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself why they were doing this. For Max, for Earth, and for every human who had ever been treated as inferior. General Harper's voice crackled over the comm system. This is it, people. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Stay sharp, stay focused, and trust each other. Good luck. As the fleet moved into space, the enormity of the task ahead weighed heavily on everyone. The ships formed a tight formation, their sleek designs cutting silently through the void. For hours, they traveled under cloak, invisible to the Council's sensors. Finally, they'd reached their target, Zixar's homeworld, a planet known for its sprawling cities and advanced defenses. Alex gave the order to decloak. One by one, the ships materialized in orbit around the planet, catching the Council completely off guard. Alarms blared on the surface as alien forces scrambled to respond. Before they could react, the Aegis fleet launched its first attack. The energy weapon fired, sending a pulse of concentrated energy toward the planet's defensive grid. The shield flickered and collapsed, leaving the planet vulnerable. Precision strikes followed, targeting military installations and infrastructure while avoiding civilian areas. Explosions lit up the horizon below as the Council's forces struggled to mount a counterattack. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Alex monitored the battle closely. So far, everything was going according to plan. Keep pushing, he ordered. We need to send a message loud and clear. Scott led his squadron in strafing runs against enemy fighters, his movements fluid and precise. Despite his earlier nerves, he felt alive in the chaos of combat. Each successful hit boosted his confidence and his determination to avenge Max. Meanwhile, Laura watched the weapon's performance from the command center. To her relief, it worked exactly as intended, disabling multiple targets without causing unnecessary destruction. Still, she knew this was only the beginning. The Council wouldn't give up easily. As the initial wave of attacks subsided, Alex addressed the fleet over the comm system. Phase 1 complete. Well done, everyone. But don't let your guard down. We've only just started. Prepare for Phase 2. The crew responded with quiet resolve, their eyes fixed on their stations. Humanity had taken its first step toward reclaiming its dignity. The Council would soon realize that Earth wasn't a force to be underestimated anymore. And there was no turning back now. The attack on Zixar's homeworld sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of Earth's retaliation spread quickly, reaching every corner of the Galactic Council's territory. For decades, humanity had been seen as weak and insignificant, a species too primitive to pose any real threat. But now, the Council found itself facing something it hadn't anticipated. A united and determined Earth. Ambassador Kale, a reptilian diplomat with shimmering green scales, stood in the Council chamber, addressing his fellow members. This aggression from Earth cannot go unanswered, he said, his voice calm but firm. But before we act, we must ask ourselves, why did this happen? Could it have been avoided? Zixar snarled from his platform, his metallic scales glinting under the light. It doesn't matter why. He snapped. They attacked us without provocation. They must be destroyed. Kale turned to face him, his gaze unwavering. Without provocation. You killed one of their service animals in cold blood during a diplomatic meeting. Did you think they would simply accept that? They are animals themselves. Zixar shot back, his voice rising. Their attachment to beasts proves how inferior they are. We should have wiped them out long ago. The chamber erupted into heated arguments, with some council members siding with Zixar and others questioning his actions. Amid the chaos, Kale raised his hand for silence. When the room finally quieted, he spoke again. Earth has shown us that they are capable of more than we gave them credit for. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our stance toward them. But Zixar wasn't listening. He rallied his allies, many of whom shared his disdain for humanity. Together, they began planning a counteroffensive, vowing to crush Earth once and for all. Meanwhile, Kale reached out secretly to Captain Alex Carter, hoping to broker a ceasefire before the conflict escalated further. Back on Earth, the mood was electric. People celebrated the success of the first strike, calling it a turning point in humanity's history. Monuments were erected in honor of Max, and stories of the Aegis fleet's bravery spread like wildfire. The protests that had erupted after Max's death transformed into rallies of support for the military. Humanity felt united in a way it never had before. At the Arctic base, preparations continued for the next phase of Operation Reckoning. Dr. Laura Bennett worked tirelessly to improve the energy weapon, analyzing data from the recent battle to identify areas for enhancement. She knew the Council wouldn't hesitate to retaliate, and Earth needed every advantage it could get. Lieutenant Ryan Scott trained pilots day and night, pushing them to their limits. Many of them were still inexperienced, but their determination made up for what they lacked in skill. Scott drilled them relentlessly, teaching them tactics designed to outmaneuver the Council's superior numbers. Captain Alex Carter spent hours studying maps of the galaxy, plotting potential targets and strategies. He knew the Council's response would be swift and brutal. Earth's survival depended on staying one step ahead. When the Council's fleet finally arrived near Elysium, a vital space station orbiting Earth, the battle was fierce. Outnumbered and outgunned, Alex led the defense alongside Scott and his squadron. Explosions lit up the darkness as ships clashed in a chaotic dance of fire and metal. During the fight, Scott noticed an enemy vessel attempting to disable the station's reactor core. Without hesitation, he broke formation and charged toward it, firing everything he had. His ship took heavy damage, but he managed to destroy the enemy vessel moments before it could reach the core. The explosion engulfed his ship, and Scott's voice disappeared from the comm system. Alex clenched his jaw, grief washing over him, but there was no time to mourn. Reinforcements from the Aegis fleet arrived just in time, turning the tide of the battle. The Council's forces retreated, leaving behind a trail of wreckage. As the dust settled, Alex stared at the screen displaying the remains of Scott's ship. He whispered softly, "We'll make sure your sacrifice wasn't in vain." The victory at Elysium proved that humanity could hold its own against the Council, but the war was far from over. The battle at Elysium had been a costly victory, but it marked a turning point in humanity's fight against the Galactic Council. News of Lieutenant Ryan Scott's sacrifice spread quickly among the crew of the Aegis fleet and back on Earth. He became a symbol of courage and selflessness, his actions inspiring others to push harder and fight smarter. Captain Alex Carter carried the weight of that loss heavily, but he knew there was no time to grieve. The Council wouldn't rest, and neither could they. Ambassador Kale, the reptilian diplomat who had questioned Zixar's arrogance, continued to work behind the scenes. He reached out to Alex through a secure channel, urging him to consider a ceasefire before the conflict spiraled further out of control. "Your people have proven their strength," Kale said during one transmission. "But war will only lead to more destruction for both sides." Alex listened carefully, his expression unreadable. "We didn't start this," he replied firmly. "If the Council wants peace, they need to show us respect. That means holding Zixar accountable for what he did." Kale sighed, his voice tinged with frustration. "Zixar is too proud to admit fault. But I believe there are others within the Council who see the value in ending this now. Give me time to rally support." While Kale worked to sway opinion within the Council, tensions simmered among its members. Not all species agreed with Zixar's aggressive stance. Some admired humanity's boldness, seeing it as a sign of resilience rather than weakness. Civil unrest began to brew on several planets, with citizens questioning why their leaders were so quick to dismiss Earth's grievances. On Earth, public sentiment shifted dramatically. People rallied around the UEDF, volunteering in droves to join the military or contribute to the war effort in any way they could. Factories once used for civilian purposes were repurposed to produce weapons and supplies. Even those who had doubted the wisdom of going to war now stood united, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Back at the Arctic base, Dr. Laura Bennett pushed herself to improve the energy weapon further. She analyzed data from the battles, tweaking algorithms and adjusting power outputs to make it even more effective. Her hands trembled sometimes from exhaustion, but she refused to stop. Every second counted, and she knew her work could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Alex spent long hours planning the next move. After consulting with General Harper and reviewing intelligence reports, he decided to target the Council's flagship, the Dominion, a massive dreadnought commanded by Zixer himself. Destroying it would deal a crippling blow to the Council's morale and demonstrate humanity's resolve. To accomplish this, Alex devised a daring plan. A small strike team would infiltrate the Dominion while the main fleet engaged its escorts. It was risky, but Alex believed it was their best chance. He handpicked the team, choosing soldiers skilled in stealth and combat. Among them was Sergeant Mia Torres, a seasoned veteran known for her sharp instincts and unshakable focus. As the fleet approached the Dominion, Alex addressed the strike team over the comm system. "This isn't just about winning a battle," he said. "It's about showing the Council, and ourselves, that we won't back down. Stay sharp, trust each other, and remember why we're here." The infiltration mission began under cover of darkness. The strike team boarded a cloaked shuttle, slipping past enemy defenses undetected. Inside the Dominion, they moved silently through dimly lit corridors, disabling guards and sabotage key systems along the way. Tension hung thick in the air as they neared the ship's command center. Finally, they'd reached their destination. Through reinforced doors, they could hear Zixar barking orders, his voice filled with rage. Alex signaled the team to get into position. They were ready to confront the alien leader face to face and settle the score once and for all. The strike team moved with precision, their footsteps silent on the cold metal floors of the Dominion. Sergeant Mia Torres led the way, her weapon raised and her eyes scanning every shadow. Behind her, Captain Alex Carter followed closely, his heart pounding but his focus sharp. They had one goal: to reach Zixer and disable the Dominion from within. The mission was dangerous, but failure wasn't an option. As they approached the command center, alarms began to blare. Someone had discovered their presence. "We've been made," Mia whispered urgently. "Move faster." The team sprinted down the corridor, dodging blasts from automated turrets that activated as they passed. One soldier went down, hit by a searing beam of energy, but the rest pressed on without hesitation. There was no time to stop. The doors to the command center loomed ahead, heavily reinforced, and locked tight. Alex signaled for breaching charges. Mia placed the explosives carefully, then stepped back as the rest of the team took cover. A deafening explosion tore through the hallway, blowing the doors off their hinges. Smoke filled the air as the team charged inside, weapons at the ready. Zixer stood in the center of the room, surrounded by a group of his loyal guards. His metallic scales gleamed under the dim red lights, and his expression was one of pure contempt. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered, raising a clawed hand toward the intruders. "You're nothing more than pests." Alex stepped forward, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "You killed Max in cold blood. You disrespected us, mocked us, and thought we'd roll over like always. But you were wrong." Zixer laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the chamber. "Your attachment to animals proves how weak you are. Humanity doesn't deserve a place among the stars." Before Alex could respond, the guards opened fire. The room erupted into chaos as the strike team returned fire, taking cover behind consoles and debris. Bullets and energy blasts ricocheted off walls, filling the air with heat and noise. One by one, the guards fell until only Zixer remained. The alien leader snarled, pulling out a handheld weapon and firing wildly. Alex dove behind a console, narrowly avoiding a blast that scorched the floor where he'd been standing. He glanced at Mia, who nodded silently. Together, they flanked Zixar, forcing him to split his attention between them. "You'll never win," Zixar spat, desperation creeping into his voice. "Even if you destroy me, the Council will crush you." "We're not afraid of your threats anymore," Alex replied, his tone icy. "This isn't just about you. It's about showing the galaxy that humanity won't be pushed around." With a final burst of speed, Alex lunged at Zixar, tackling him to the ground. The two struggled fiercely, each fighting for dominance. Zixar's claws slashed at Alex's armor, leaving deep gouges, but Alex refused to let go. Summoning every ounce of strength, he delivered a powerful punch to Zixar's jaw, stunning the alien long enough to disarm him. Breathing heavily, Alex stood over Zixar, pointing his weapon at the alien's chest. For a moment, he considered ending it right there, but something stopped him. Killing Zixar in cold blood would make him no better than the alien who had murdered Max. Instead, Alex activated a neural inhibitor, rendering Zixar unconscious. "Mission complete," Alex said into his comm system. "Disable the ship's core and get us out of here." Mia and the others quickly set charges throughout the Dominion, targeting critical systems. As they raced back to the shuttle, explosions rocked the massive dreadnought, sending it spiraling out of control. By the time they reached the extraction point, the Dominion was engulfed in flames, its once mighty frame crumbling into space dust. Back aboard the Phoenix, Alex watched as the remains of the Dominion drifted away. The victory was bittersweet. Too many lives had been lost. But it was a turning point. The Council now knew that humanity wouldn't back down, no matter the odds. As the fleet regrouped, Alex allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. Max's memory burned brightly in his mind, fueling his determination to see this fight through to the end. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and it would never make that mistake again. The destruction of the Dominion sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Zixar, once a symbol of arrogance and dominance, was now a prisoner aboard the Phoenix. His capture, and the loss of his flagship, shattered the illusion of invincibility that the Council had long held over humanity. For the first time, cracks began to form in the Council's unity. Ambassador Kale seized the opportunity to push for peace. He called an emergency session, urging his fellow members to reconsider their stance toward Earth. "What we've done to humanity is wrong," he said, his voice calm but firm. "They have shown strength, courage, and honor, qualities we claim to value. If we continue this war, it will only lead to more destruction." Not all Council members agreed. Some, emboldened by anger and pride, demanded retaliation. But others, especially those who had secretly admired humanity's resilience, began to listen. Civil unrest on several planets grew louder, with citizens questioning why their leaders were so quick to dismiss Earth's grievances. The tide of public opinion was shifting. On Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the Dominion's destruction spread. People poured into the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans like "Justice for Max" and "Earth United." Monuments were built not just for Max, but also for Lieutenant Ryan Scott and the countless others who had given their lives in the fight. Humanity felt stronger than ever, a species united by purpose and pride. At the Arctic base, Dr. Laura Bennett worked tirelessly to analyze data from the battle. Her energy weapon had performed flawlessly, disabling key systems on the Dominion and giving the strike team the edge they needed. Still, she couldn't shake the weight of responsibility. Every success came at a cost, and she knew the war wasn't over yet. Captain Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, staring out at the stars. The victory against the Dominion had been significant, but he knew it wouldn't end the conflict. The Council still had vast resources and powerful allies. Earth's survival depended on staying one step ahead. General Harper contacted Alex via encrypted comms. "We've caught whispers of internal division within the Council," Harper said. Kale is pushing hard for peace talks. This might be our chance to negotiate from a position of strength. Alex nodded thoughtfully. It's worth exploring, but we can't let our guard down. If they see weakness, they'll exploit it. As preparations for potential peace talks began, Alex made sure the Aegis fleet remained ready for action. Pilots trained relentlessly, engineers worked around the clock to repair damaged ships, and Dr. Bennett continued refining her weapon. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and no one could afford to relax. Meanwhile, Zixer sat in a holding cell aboard the Phoenix, his metallic scales dulled by defeat. When Alex visited him, the alien leader glared with pure hatred. "You think this changes anything?" Zixer spat. "Even if the Council agrees to your terms, you'll always be seen as inferior." Alex met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe, but we're not afraid to fight for what's right. That makes us stronger than you'll ever be." Days later, Ambassador Kale arrived at a neutral space station to meet with Alex and General Harper. The discussions were tense but productive. Earth demanded equal status within the Council, reparations for past injustices, and guarantees that humanity would never again be treated as second-class citizens. To everyone's surprise, several Council members supported these demands. The final agreement wasn't perfect, but it marked a new chapter for humanity. Earth earned its place among the stars, not through submission, but through strength and determination. As the treaty was signed, Alex thought of Max, Scott, and all those who had sacrificed everything for this moment. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and it would never make that mistake again. The signing of the treaty marked a new beginning for humanity. The Galactic Council, once dismissive and arrogant, now recognized Earth as an equal member among the stars. It wasn't just a victory in battle. It was a triumph of willpower, resilience, and unity. For the first time in history, humanity stood tall alongside species far older and more advanced, proving that strength wasn't measured by technology alone, but by courage and conviction. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted across cities and towns. People gathered in parks, stadiums, and public squares, waving flags and lighting up the night sky with fireworks. Monuments were unveiled in honor of Max, Lieutenant Ryan Scott, and all those who had fought and died for this moment. Schools began teaching the story of Operation Reckoning, ensuring that future generations would remember how humanity earned its place among the stars. Captain Alex Carter returned to Earth after months of relentless battles and negotiations. He stepped off the shuttle to a hero's welcome, though he didn't feel like one. The weight of loss still lingered in his heart. Max's death, Scott's sacrifice, and the countless lives lost during the war. But he also felt a quiet sense of pride. Humanity had proven itself not just capable of fighting, but of standing firm in the face of injustice. Dr. Laura Bennett retired from active duty shortly after the war ended. She returned to her lab, focusing on peaceful projects aimed at improving life on Earth and fostering cooperation with other species. Her energy weapon, once a tool of war, inspired advancements in clean energy and shield technology that benefited everyone. Though she often thought about the cost of their victory, she found solace in knowing her work had helped secure a brighter future. Lieutenant Ryan Scott's memory lived on as a symbol of bravery and selflessness. A statue of him standing beside a fighter jet was erected near the Arctic base, where the Aegis fleet had launched its first mission. Every year, pilots from across the globe visited the site to pay their respects, vowing to carry forward the spirit of determination Scott had embodied. Alex spent his days quietly, finding comfort in small moments. He adopted another service dog named Luna, who reminded him of Max. Together, they walked along quiet paths surrounded by trees, away from the noise of the world. Yet even in retirement, Alex remained a voice for humanity, speaking at events and reminding people of the importance of standing up for what's right. Ambassador Kale became a trusted ally of Earth, working tirelessly to ensure the Council honored its promises. His efforts paved the way for greater collaboration between humanity and other species, fostering friendships and partnerships that strengthened the galaxy as a whole. The Aegis fleet, once a secret weapon, now served as Earth's ambassadorial armada, traveling to distant stars and forging alliances. Its ships, once symbols of rebellion, became beacons of hope and progress. Humanity's journey into the cosmos had only just begun, and the lessons learned during the war guided every step forward. As years passed, the scars of the conflict faded, but the memory of what humanity had achieved never did. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and it would never make that mistake again. From the ashes of hardship rose a united and unyielding species, ready to carve its own destiny among the stars. And so, under twinkling skies and endless horizons, humanity looked toward a brighter future, proud of how far it had come and eager to see how far it could go.